That was a big moment for me of realizing that a typical yoga class doesn't work for a lot of bodies. There's a lot of people that could really use yoga that can't take a typical yoga class.
With 10,000 people a day in the US turning 65, and the benefits of yoga being scientifically proven to help reduce stress, anxiety, blood pressure, improve sleep, and help you cope with health problems, more and more people are seeking the practice of yoga.
You know, yoga wasn't the thing that has cured my health problems, but it's been instrumental in pain management and in how am I going to deal, you know, the mentality I needed to have when I was dealing with different updates on my health.
That was Lauren Merrithew, a Spokane Yoga instructor who realized that a traditional yoga class might not be available to every body type. She specializes in offering classes that are accessible to all levels. And she is also my guest for this week's episode. It's January 29th, 2019. Welcome to episode 4 of Yogakane. Do more of what you love with yoga. I'm Lauren Sanders, your host. Yogakane is a podcast where I travel around the Pacific Northwest, talking to yogis within our community about yoga. Yogakane's mission is to deliver the message that yoga is for everybody. With more people beginning to realize the health benefits of the practice, I wanted to talk to Lauren because she has found a way to give her students a voice in the classroom and is equipping herself with tools and a mindset to serve her students. But if you were going to ask her a few years ago if she was going to be a yoga teacher, she would probably say,
not on my list. Started when I was 18, started teaching when I was 19, which is kind of crazy.
Wow.
And what cracks me up is I had in a community where everyone is very intention-centered, I had no intention of being a teacher. Like, this was not on my list. If you had asked me at any point prior to coming to yoga if I was going to be a yoga teacher, I'd be like, no.
Look at her now. Lauren has been a yoga teacher for 4 years, and she was one of my teachers for the 200-hour yoga teacher training I took at Harmony Yoga. She is also an accessibility yoga ambassador and is currently in the process of becoming a 500-hour yoga teacher through Harmony Yoga's training. Her approach to sequencing a class is from a physiological perspective. So basically, Lauren asks herself, what is the function of this pose, and how can I break that down to any level of student?
I love breaking down a pose. One of my favorite teachers, Julie Goodmanstad, she's based in Portland, Oregon. Her ability to take a super advanced asana and then take it back, 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 take it back to like a post-op level is magnificent.
Oh my gosh.
I love that because then I can work with my post-op private clients who can't go into a class, and I can say, here, we're going to start this here, and then in like a year and a half, 2 years, you're going to be here.
Through this process, each of her students are still able to do the pose, but they all do it a little differently. For example, in Lauren's class, you might see somebody doing the full expression of a pose, like eagle pose, and another student doing a modified version. Regardless of how they're doing the pose, they are still receiving the benefits of the posture. Through the use of modifications and props, each posture has been made accessible to any level of student.
Will get you to where you want to go faster. And sometimes I'll even show it. Like, okay, if we do this version, that's going to give us the strength to do this, which is going to give us to do the strength to do this, which will get us right there. But if we just push to right there, here's what happens if our shoulders aren't strong enough. Or, so I'll give them, like, here's one way, here's the other way, which way would you rather take?
So why does Lauren break down poses to the post-op level? Well, before she became a yoga instructor, she was on the track to attend university in San Francisco to study fashion and manufacturing. She wanted to support this industry to change the way clothes were made to be less destructive to the people making them and to the planet. Since Lauren was young, she has suffered from chronic illness and pain. This began to flare up and she decided to withdraw from university.
You know, sometimes people are like, are you copped out? It's like, no, I made a wise decision. I would have just crashed out there, and I knew it, as far as health crash. And so then I was having this quarter-life crisis. It's like, what am I going to do with my life? What I thought I wanted to do is not possible. And I had to face this sobering reality that without my health, I couldn't do what I loved. Okay, now what? And so shortly after withdrawing, I believe it was like days after, that my mom just nudged me and said, why don't you take a yoga class?
And I've never taken a yoga class before?
No, never.
Okay. Did your mom practice?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So my mom did, and I believe she practiced the first trimester of her pregnancy with me.
Oh, that's so cool.
I think. I could be wrong, but she definitely did practice when I was little, as a little kid. But I was initially super hesitant at that. Allie was actually my neighbor growing up.
On this podcast, we have talked about Allison Rubin a few times. Allie is a cornerstone within the Spokane Yoga community. She owns Harmony Yoga, a Spokane studio that has been around for 30 years, and she is a gifted teacher who has never stopped learning. She is one of my primary teachers and was the main teacher who led my 200-hour yoga teacher training. If you ever get a chance to take one of Allie's classes, do it. All right, let's get back to Lauren.
She lived around the corner, and so I used to see her walk her grandbabies down the street in their stroller, and she'd walk behind them, walk behind the stroller, and she just carries herself. You know how she carries herself, with such grace and strength. And so here I was, sick and a mess, and I'm like, I'm not qualified to go. I'm not like her. It's like, I can't do that. And so she's like, no, just try. So I was to be totally honest, too afraid, too intimidated to take a class with Allie first. So I know. So instead, I took a class with one of her other teachers on the schedule.
At Harmony.
Okay. So I went to Harmony because it was just 5 minutes from my house. And so I took, I think it was 2 classes with another teacher. And I was like, okay, now I'll do it. Now I'll take a class with Allie. Took the class. It just blew me out of the water. I mean, I felt graceful. I felt coordinated. All of the weight that I'd been feeling of, oh my goodness, my world as I knew it had fallen apart. But that was just all gone. And I just felt completely different walking in versus walking out. And she walked up to me and she's like, are you sure you've never done this before? It's like, just the 2 classes. She's like, and just kind of left it at that. And so I took 2 more classes with her. 3rd class, she said, do you want to teach? And that was just kind of this huge mirror of like, well, maybe, because I had the perspective of, oh my gosh, if I could give people what she gave me in that first class, and I could do that as my job, yeah. So my initial response was, I can make people feel like you made me feel, yes, but wait, I don't have any experience.
By the way, Lauren still carries her passion for fashion and the way clothes are made. Follow her on Sustainably Smitten. I'll link to this in the show notes. During her 200-hour yoga teacher training, something happened to Lauren, which made her realize that a typical yoga class might not work for a lot of body types. This began to spark her curiosity and mission to offer yoga to every level of student.
Started to take the training, and then midway through, I hurt my back. And so then I was in excruciating pain. I remember laying on the floor, the kitchen floor, and all of a sudden having this pain that felt like I had shattered my back. It's like, how am I going to get up off the floor? And so then it's just, I had that promising training. It's like I went from school to no school, which was a big jump. And then, okay, now I have a new direction, something else I can dive into. And then midway through that, it felt like this big psych. It's like, here's an idea and let's just tug the rug out from under you. And so I was again having another one of those, okay, what's going on now? What's going to happen now? So I went into physical therapy. I worked with a Pilates-based movement therapist, and the physical therapist said, don't take a stance longer than a foot and no external rotation. Well, yoga poses. That's like 75% of beginner poses. It's like, so it's like, okay, what am I going to do? And that was a big moment for me of realizing that a typical yoga class doesn't work for a lot of bodies. There's a lot of people that could really use yoga that can't take a typical yoga class. Like during that time, if I was going to take a regular yoga class, I would have come out worse.
Right.
And so it was this huge, okay, well, at the time when I took that class from Allie that changed my life for the better, that worked for me. And I want to give that to people, but I can't give that to everybody because not everybody can take that class. So then it's like, okay, well then how can I bring that, or how can I make a typical yoga class better for bodies like mine, or like mine was at the time.
Limitations,
that have limitations, because it has to be different.
Since then, Lauren has been on a journey to equip herself so she is prepared for her students by reaching out to other yoga teachers and continuing her yoga education.
I have mentors. I have people that I ask questions to. I run ideas by them and say, hey, how does this kind of sequencing work? It's by realizing that I don't have all the answers and asking everybody else. Or when I do come up with an idea, it's seeking confirmation without having another set of eyes on it. And knowing it's filtering the continuing education I get. So I seek teachers that have that same idea, that have that same intent.
Okay.
And then I study with those teachers.
Okay.
So I try and put myself around teachers that have the same desire for their students.
What I admire about Lauren is her approach to teaching. She doesn't put any expectation on her students. Through education and talking with her mentors, she's equipped herself with preset sequences, which she calls
puzzle piece approach.
Puzzle pieces.
I started sequencing in a way that I thought would feel best to people's bodies, and that was my first step. And I tried to do that right out of the gate because I had experienced back pain. I'm like, okay, how can I make sure that the spine is aptly warmed up, efficiently warmed up? What are some things that I can do that can take a back, and what's a safe way, to strengthen the back? So I started being mindful about my sequencing, but then what I discovered is I would have, 10 people in a class and look around, and I started taking requests or asking for aches and pains so I could get a feedback of what people need, what they walked in for, relief from, or what they were seeking. And then it was like, oh shoot, I'd look at my piece of paper that had my sequence, and it would benefit 5 of them, but then 4 of them would be worse off if I followed that worksheet. And that was my moment of, okay, forget it. Forget the perfect sequence. Forget having a plan and sticking to the plan. To me, that felt like I was betraying those 4 students, and I couldn't live with that because I was one of those students.
Yeah.
That was stuck and trying to take a class and wanting to make it work, and would have a class where it didn't work. And I don't blame a teacher for that, but I just knew that because I had been in that place of feeling like a victim in my body and seeking help and having it backfire, that's just a really scary initial feeling of like, oh, you just become desperate. I was hyper tuned into the need and feeling of those students that were hurting because I had been there.
Yeah.
And so they were my initial driving force. And if I followed them, everyone else still benefited.
Yep.
So then I just threw sequencing out the window for a while, and what I did is I started making a list or mini sequences that I could start piling together. So I started, I did a lot of study of okay, what are poses that are good for tight IT bands? What are good poses for strengthening hips? What are good poses for releasing hips? And I do mini sequences. And I started doing that for the major complaints that I would get.
So whatever someone would bring to you, you would have that in your back pocket, and you could just like...
Bingo.
Good.
So then basically I would make a puzzle. So I walked into
cool.
class, with my puzzle pieces of what people typically ask for, and for that level. So mind you, like when I started, I just taught beginners. So I had the beginner puzzle pieces, but now that I teach more advanced classes, then what people come in for is different. What they the advanced students are seeking are not necessarily beginner students are seeking. So then I have my puzzle pieces for that class. But so with this initial class that I was experimenting with, it was okay, I'm going to walk in with my puzzle pieces. I'm going to wait to see what people I'd say, hey, let me know if you have aches and pains that you want me to address. Let me know if you've got places of tension that you want me to release. If there's something you want to strengthen. If there's a pose you want me to break down. If there's a pose you can't figure out, let's break it down, because you're probably not the only one. It's like, how does Warrior 2 work?
Now, was this like, did it take a while for people to respond? Because sometimes when I ask that question, people will be like, just give us the class. They're just like, it's fine, just whatever you have,
I started having people going around in a circle, because if I just said, if I just did an open ask, nobody wants to be that one person.
Yeah.
But if I I say, let's go around, and I trace the line in the room, and then people can just say nothing, but then because everybody's going, then they feel more comfortable sharing.
That's a good
approach.
approach.
But if you just have a blanket, like, anybody want anything, nobody wants to, like, let me just derail the class, nobody wants to be an inconvenience for anyone else. So I've used certain language, like, I base my class off of what you want. So then that's another reason why they feel more comfortable, I think.
Yeah.
Because it's like, this is for you. So then I started doing that puzzle piece approach, and it took a while to get comfortable with that, but that's my current model. With classes like a flow class, I have an idea of where I want to go, and then I fill in. I think that's my strength, and I feel that that's how I can best meet those students or serve those students.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's
meet those students. I love that.
I don't know if it's the most effective thing for every teacher, but as far as from my experience, from my perspective, that is in the way that I have tried to view it. How can I be the best servant for my teacher or for my students? How can I be the best servant for them? Well, it's to drop any idea that I thought they should have and ask them what they walked in with. What do you why? Because we all go to yoga for some reason.
Oh, wow.
Right? I mean, there's some motivating factor for you being there. So if I can know what that motivating factor is, I can help create that with you.
You said you have private clients. So have you seen any kind of like growth or development with like your students with this approach?
Oh yeah, so I'm gonna brag about my students first, and then talk about how I came to this conclusion. So I have one gal who has been working with me. It's gonna be 3 years in February. And when she first called me, February 3 years ago, she's just like, I need to increase my flexibility, and that was pretty much all I knew. And she asked if I could do it in her home. It's like, sure thing. So I showed up with a ginormous bag. I looked like a Sherpa of yoga props, and it's like, let's do this. And so she had mentioned restorative yoga. She's like, I think that would be a good idea. And so hence the ginormous bag of props. So I see her and start working with her, and she was recovering from colon cancer. And with certain procedures, she had scar tissue that would lead to flare-ups of inflammation, where she would end up in the emergency room every 3 weeks. Every 3 weeks, on the dot. So I start working with her. We start doing movement just to increase circulation. So if we look at the body, we've got systems that take care of the other systems. We've got our nerve function. Our nerves tell us what to do. We've got our blood function, which delivers. So it's kind of like the mail system and the garbage system. So our tissues need to be cleansed and fed, and that's what the blood system does. It takes away icky things. It brings good things. And so we need the delivery system open, and we need the nerve function going, and then vitality, so prana. We need those are the 3 pieces. And I guess that's one of the ways that I really think about class 2. So we did movement that increases circulation. We did movement, we did breath work for prana, to increase prana. And we did restorative yoga for rest for her nervous system. And I've worked with her twice a week, on and off. I mean, life happens, so that's not perfectly consistent, but probably average twice a week for the past 3 years. She walked in with low back pain, neck pain, hip pain, feet cramping all the time. When she would do any kind of twist, I mean, her knees would move maybe a half an inch before her back would spasm. I mean, that was the beginning. And now when she does a supine twist, that first knee of whatever side, like to the right side, the right knee comes down to the ground, comes back up, comes down to the ground. No back pain. She just did her first down dog on Wednesday.
Oh, whoa.
Big deal.
That is.
And so...
That's a whole different distribution of weight. Because she's going into the hands now, and I'm sure you've probably done inversions with restorative.
We did legs up.
At the wall. Yeah. But that's a physical inversion. That's awesome.
Yeah, but I mean that was given. I didn't start introducing her to even the concept of doing down dog until August of this year.
So what did you do between August and now?
We started doing more practice of weight bearing on the hands and different variations of down dog. One of the first poses I ever taught her was half dog, using her kitchen counter to create space for the spine. And then we started doing, if we do half dog at the wall, we have to support our bodies more. So she had to increase strength with doing half dog at the wall. And then to get her body, her nervous system adjusted to being upside down, we did down dog with hands on a seat of a chair. So her body was familiar with being upside down. And then from hands and knees, we did little things like curling toes and pressing the toes into the mat to just lift the knees up an inch off the ground and back down. So building that core stability that will get her up into the position.
So you're in tabletop.
You push the toes in just so the knees come an inch off the ground and then back down.
You had her working. That's a tough one.
Because that way, when she gets up there, it's a 100% success rate.
Right.
Or, I can't say 100%, but I have her the most prepared. Because that was a big goal. That pose had a lot of weight for her, and so I wanted to make sure we had checked every box that I could think of, so that when she did that pose, it was a oh my gosh instead of a oh shoot.
Well, yeah, the rolling the toes under and hovering the knees and tabletop, that's a brilliant idea, because you're building the strength, but you also are giving her ways to come out of the pose and that strength to press in. Because, it's so great to bring someone into a pose, but it's like, okay, now we got to get out of that pose. And that takes that's a whole other process of the yoga practice.
The second half of the pose.
So, okay, I love that. That breakdown. That's okay. That's great.
And so those are, that's what I can think of off the top of my head without looking at my notes.
Oh, I'm sure there was a million other things, but
that was August to now. We did we spent years prepping her shoulders, because when she first lifted her arms, they weren't up by her ears, and that's a huge piece of down dog, is having the arms, in order for the spine to have that real sense of release, to have the hips and arms in that nice long line. That's key. So I didn't even consider down dog until she could have her arms up overhead, those ribs still in, and until she had 90 with lying down and having a foot up towards the sky.
Okay, comfortable 90.
Because if you think about down dog, that's the angle for the hip. I just broke down the pose and looked at the different functions. What function do the shoulders need to have? What function does the torso need to have? What function do the hips have to have? What do the legs need to be able to do? What do the feet need to be able to do? Her wrists. It took us a few years to get her wrists comfortable. So that's why I love working with people one-on-one, because she knew she didn't even want to, she's like, I didn't want to try a class because I knew it wasn't going to work. But there's so many people that can benefit from yoga where a class doesn't do them justice. I didn't mention, too, with my student who just did down dog, she also now, her ER visits are like 9 months apart. So we went from 3 weeks to 9 months. I mean, that's just huge, because breath work almost always solves every flare up for her. She does a few minutes of breath work, typically 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and it resolves it.
Oh my God.
It's like, what, as someone who has had the experience of feeling like a victim in their own body, to then having tools to be like, okay, I don't have to feel that way. I can do, if she has an achy back because now she's lifting so many things and rearranging her house, it's like, we have to find that balance of like, hey, training to be Wonder Woman.
Yeah, sounds like it. What a beautiful testimony to yoga and its ability to empower us to do more of what we love off of the yoga mat. I wanted to talk to Lauren about chronic illness and pain and get her perspective on how to get into yoga if you have chronic illness.
Their primary care provider or their physical therapist or somebody saying try yoga, I recommend having a conversation with the studio or the teacher that you're planning to take from. Because then you can ask questions and see if you and that teacher are a good fit before you walk in the classroom.
Lauren, I am so happy that you're a yoga teacher. Thank you for your dedication and love of the practice. You are truly a gift to our community. If you want to learn more about Lauren, take one of her classes, or do a private class with her, I'll link to her in the show notes. In the meanwhile, you can find her teaching at Yoga Joy North in Spokane, and on February 23rd and 24th, she is teaching a kids yoga workshop at Harmony Yoga. Stay tuned, because in the next few weeks, Lauren will return to the podcast where we talk about restorative yoga. And yes, it feels as good as it sounds, and yes, we all need more restorative yoga in our life.
We are just as stressed thinking about our stressful job as we are at our stressful job. So we have to figure out a way to disconnect from that stress, because our body can't tell the difference between a environmental stress and something that we're thinking about.
I hope you have begun to discover yoga is available to everybody and comfortable to ask questions or seek modifications. If you're still seeking your voice and aren't comfortable asking questions in a yoga class setting, please feel free to ask me your yoga-related questions, and I will do my best to get them answered. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the podcast, and if you like what you hear, leave a review and share it with your yogi friends. In the next episode, we are traveling to the Tri-Cities, where I talk with a dear friend of mine, Miranda Jimerson. She too is an accessibility yoga ambassador. She empowers me to embrace and love all of my curves, creases, and dark places of my body, because it's the most amazing thing I'll ever own.
Gain weight between Thanksgiving and Christmas, then honey, you're blessed.
Yeah, Miranda is awesome. I just wanted to say congratulations to the Spokane Yoga Shala's newly graduated 200-hour Kundalini teachers. I am so excited to do yoga with you. The new year sparks beginnings, and a number of people from our community are going into yoga teacher trainings. First of all, thank you to the teachers who are continuing their education and are a part of Harmony Yoga's 300-hour yoga teacher training. We, your students, are so thankful for your dedication and love to the practice and can't wait to see what you learn. Quick side note, continued education credits are available for some of these sessions during Harmony Yoga's training. Check out Harmony Yoga's website for more details on the CEU breakout sessions of this training. To those new yogis out there who are starting their 200-hour training at Harmony Yoga or at the Spokane Yoga Shala, I am sending you my love and prayers. You are in for a very special journey. Okay, I think that is it. I will talk to you next episode, but in the meanwhile, let's chat on social media. And if you have any yogis within your yoga community that you would like to hear on the podcast, please send me their name. Namaste is a Sanskrit word which means the divine light within me honors and sees the divine light within you. Namaste and Shanti peace to you and your household.